Hello, this is Ernest Burley, your CIA, your cool insurance agent, back at you again with some more great information on insurance. I am a licensed insurance agent with over 30 years experience, licensed across the country. I specialize in all areas of insurance and I have clients across the country in the insurance arena. The purpose of this podcast is to educate, enlighten, and empower you with objective and unbiased information so you can make the right decisions for you and your family. So I just want you to have the right information. Okay. So I'm just going to jump right on into it. Let's get at it. Okay. So the name of this podcast is Get a Life. Get a life. Get a life insurance policy, but get the right type of life insurance policy. So what I end up seeing is a lot of times people have policies, they think it's one thing, but it's something else. So I want to make sure you have the right information so you can make the right decision and know that you have the right life insurance policy based on your situation. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the three main types of life insurance. Okay. The three main types of life insurance are term, whole life, and universal life. Okay. So term life insurance, whole life insurance, and universal life insurance. Those are the three main types of life insurance. And I'm going to delve into each one of those. We may have to do a separate podcast to do a deeper dive on each one of them, but I'm going to give you some good nuggets on each policy now so you kind of know how to discern which policy you should have. So term life insurance, you often see those advertised on TV. Term life insurance is very inexpensive during the term. Okay, so if you have a 10-year term, a 20-year term, or a 30-year term, the premium is very inexpensive during that period of time. Okay, now after that period of time, not so much, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So that's one advantage of term life insurance. You can get a lot of insurance for a small premium. Okay, the next advantage of term life insurance, or main feature of term life insurance, is temporary coverage. So I wouldn't say that's an advantage, but it's a big feature of term life insurance. It's temporary. It's not going to last indefinitely. Okay, so understand that. And sometimes people get excited when they see term to age 85 or something like that. We're going to talk about how you're not going to have that policy to age 85. Guarantee you that, because the premium is just going to be too much after that. Okay. Now, another feature of these policies is that it has no cash value. Okay. So those policies have no cash value. Some people want a cash value in the life insurance policy. No, you can't get that in term life insurance. Okay. Now, most term policies do have a conversion feature where you can convert the policy from a term policy into a permanent plan of insurance. Not all of them do, but a lot of them do. Okay. Now, if you're going to get term life insurance, get a term policy that's the longest term that you can qualify for. Okay. It's very important that you do that, because the shorter term policy works to the advantage of a life insurance company, because after that term, they're going to jack up your rates. Okay. The longer term works to your advantage, right? The longer term works to the advantage of the client, because you're locked in for a longer period of time, and the life insurance company can't increase the rate during that term, during that period of time. Most of the ads you see on TV are for like 10-year term. They don't, it's in the small print, but it's a 10-year term policy. Where you got, John, a policy, blah, 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 for, 15 or 20 bucks a month or whatever. Well, that's normally a 10-year term policy, because they know they're going to jack up the rate after 10 years. Okay. Now, the policy saying that it's term to age 85. Let's tackle that one. You're not going to keep it to age 85, because when the policy renews after the term, the rate is going to be so ridiculously high that you're not going to be able to even afford it after that term. So if you get the policy when you're 40 and it renews at 70, the rate's going to be so ridiculously high at 70, maybe $1,500, $2,000 per month. Okay. Now, who's going to afford that? You can't afford that. And the rate normally goes up every year after that. So you're not going to keep that policy to age 85. They'll let you keep it if you want to keep paying that high premium, but you're not going to be able to afford that premium. So that's why it's considered temporary insurance, because it's not going to last for life. Even if you did pay to age 85, if you live past 85, it's not going to stay in force. And really, you're not going to be able to keep that premium going after that term. Very expensive. Okay. So let's not think about that. Okay. Now, the next type of life insurance is whole life insurance. Now, whole life insurance is considered permanent insurance. And it's considered permanent insurance because the premium stays the same indefinitely and the benefit stays the same indefinitely. The same premium and the same coverage for life. As long as you pay that premium, you're good to go with that policy. So that's a very good feature in those policies. Whole life insurance guarantees your premium for life and guarantees your coverage for life as long as you pay that premium, okay? Whole life insurance also has a cash value feature to it. A lot of people like that. So it does have a cash value feature, and it builds cash over time that you can borrow against later on in life. So that's another good feature for whole life. And those are like the main 2 points of whole life insurance. So I'm just going to jump right on to the universal life. Now, I may have to do a whole different podcast on universal life because truthfully, those policies can be very tricky, okay? They can be permanent. They can be strategized to turn into a permanent type of policy. But most of the policies out there, most of the universal life policies out there are traditional universal life policies, which are not guaranteed for life. If you look at a universal life policy, a traditional universal life policy, and here's another podcast I'm going to have coming down the pike talking about how to read your illustration. You'll eventually see zeros in your coverage column in a traditional universal life policy. Now, I write guaranteed universal life policies all day long. I love those plans because they are guaranteed for life. Now, here's another trick you have to look out for under these guaranteed universal life policies. I had a client, this happened to a client, they were, some agent told them they were giving them a guaranteed universal life policy, but it's guaranteed to like age 80 or something like that. No, you want it to be guaranteed for life. Hopefully you're going to live past 80, right? We don't know how long, but if it's guaranteed for life, ideally you want it to be guaranteed to at least age 100. And I normally guarantee them to age 120 or 110 or 105, depending on the age of the client. Because if you're a younger client, the premium is the same at 120 or 100. When you start getting older, then you might kick it back to 105 or 110 or what have you, but that guarantees it pretty much for life, as opposed to a traditional universal life policy, not guaranteed for life, okay? Now, these policies do have a cash value feature in them too, but there are 2 different columns and no one really pays attention to this either. So there's an account value column and a surrender value column. And if you surrender that policy within the first 10 to 20 years, the surrender value column is less than the actual account value or the cash value in the policy, okay? So you got to pay attention. You got to read those illustrations. And like I said before, we're going to do another podcast that really tackles reading illustrations, whether it be term or whole life or universal life, so you understand how to read those illustrations and how the policy is going to perform going forward, okay? And that's it for this podcast. I just wanted to hit something real quick, some basic information on term, whole life, universal life. So just a quick recap. We talked about term life insurance, which the main aspects or main things to point out on term life insurance are that the premium is very inexpensive during that term normally, okay? The premium is only inexpensive during that term though. After the term, the rate goes through the roof. Those plans are considered temporary life insurance because they are not permanent. They aren't in existence indefinitely, okay? And you can usually convert those plans into a permanent type of insurance. So that's a good feature in those type plans, okay? Now, whole life insurance, a little bit different. Whole life is considered a permanent plan of insurance. It builds a cash value and the coverage and the premium stay the same for life. As long as you pay that premium, your policy is good to go. Universal life, a little different, very tricky type plan, a lot of moving parts at the same time. And you have to be very aware of what type of universal life policy it is and how long it's going to last, because traditional universal life policies, like I said, will leave you with no coverage. And I've seen it happen several times, okay? So I'm not just talking from hypothetical situations or what I read in a book. I have a large client base and I deal with these situations all the time. So my goal is to make sure that you have the right information so you can make the right decisions for your family. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you got some good information from this podcast. Hey, you can connect with me on my web from email, ernestburleyjr@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get in contact with me. Again, my full name, ernestburleyjr@gmail.com. I'll answer any questions that you have, or you can call my firm, 301-262-2600 is the number to my firm. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you again for listening in. Please share the podcast with others and listen out for more podcasts coming from your CIA, your cool insurance agent, Ernest Burley.